The garage smelled like motor oil and broken dreams. It was 1 in the morning, and I was elbow deep in the guts of my neighbor's alternator when I heard my wife Sabrina's voice drifting through the thin walls of our house. She was laughing. That sharp, cutting laugh she used to reserve for other people's failures. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. No, Evan, you don't understand, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the baby monitor we'd never bothered to remove from the kitchen. He actually thinks his little inventions are going somewhere. Can you believe that? 42 years old and still playing with gadgets in the garage like some teenager. I froze, my wrench halfway through a turn. The alternator suddenly seemed less important than the conversation happening 20 feet away. The job loss hit him hard, Sabrina continued, and I could hear the smile in her voice. But honestly, it might be the best thing that ever happened to us. Now I don't have to pretend his work matters anymore. My hands started shaking, not from anger, not yet, from something colder, something that felt like clarity. When are you going to tell him about us? The voice was male, smooth, confident. Evan. I knew that voice from Sabrina's office parties, her boss, the guy who always looked at me like I was something stuck to his shoe. Soon, Sabrina said. I'm just waiting for the right moment. Maybe after I figure out what to do with all his patent paperwork. Some of those ideas aren't completely worthless. I set down the wrench with surgical precision. 23 years of marriage, and this was how it ended. Not with a fight or growing apart, but with my wife laughing about my failures while planning to steal my life's work. The smart move would have been to storm inside, demand explanations, maybe throw Evan out a window. But I'd learned something in my 4 decades on this planet. The smart move and the satisfying move were rarely the same thing. Instead, I picked up my phone and started recording. The thing is, Sabrina was saying, he's so trusting. He actually puts my name on half his patents as co-inventor. Can you imagine? All I have to do is encourage him a little, act interested in his work, and boom, I own half of everything he creates. You're brilliant, Evan said, and I could hear the sound of kissing. In my kitchen, at my table. I know, Sabrina replied. And the best part is, he has no idea. He thinks I married him for love, as if I'd settle for a blue-collar nobody when I could have someone like you. I stopped the recording and sat back on my heels. The alternator could wait. Hell, everything could wait. Because Sabrina had just made a crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. See, the thing about being underestimated your whole life is that you get really, really good at using it to your advantage. People see a guy in work clothes with grease under his fingernails, and they assume he's stupid. They assume he's not paying attention. They assume he won't fight back. They're usually wrong about that last part. I pulled out my laptop and started typing. If Sabrina wanted to play games with my patents, she was about to learn that I'd been playing chess while she was still figuring out checkers. The first thing I did was check our joint accounts. Sure enough, she'd been moving money. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger alerts, but enough to build herself a nice little nest egg. The second thing I did was call my lawyer. Janice? It's Nick. I know it's late, but I need to ask you something about patent law. Janice Winters had been handling my legal work for 15 years. She was tough as nails and twice as sharp, with a reputation for eating corporate lawyers for breakfast. This better be good, Nick. I was in the middle of a very promising Netflix binge. How hard would it be to remove someone's name from a patent application, hypothetically speaking? There was a pause. Hypothetically, if that someone didn't actually contribute to the invention and was added fraudulently, it would be pretty straightforward. Why? Just curious. One more question. If someone were to steal patent information and pass it to a competitor, what kind of trouble would they be looking at? Industrial espionage, breach of fiduciary duty, possibly federal charges depending on the value involved. Her voice sharpened. Nick, what's going on? Nothing yet, I said. But I have a feeling things are about to get interesting. I hung up and looked at the patent files spread across my workbench. 12 years of innovation, dozens of applications, and 3 pending approvals that could be worth serious money. Sabrina's name was on half of them, just like she'd said. But here's the thing she didn't know. I'd been keeping detailed records of every conversation, every brainstorming session, every moment of actual contribution. And her contributions added up to exactly 0. The garage door creaked as I heard footsteps outside. I quickly closed the laptop and picked up my wrench, pretending to work on the alternator. Nick? Sabrina's voice was honey-sweet now, the same tone she used when she wanted something. Are you still out here? It's really late. Just finishing up, I called back. Mrs. Patterson needs her car tomorrow. She appeared in the doorway, backlit by the kitchen light. Even after everything I'd just heard, I had to admit she was beautiful. Tall, blonde, with the kind of polished look that came from expensive salons and regular gym sessions. She was wearing the silk robe I'd bought her for Christmas, the one that cost half my paycheck. You work too hard, she said, walking over to kiss my cheek. Her lips felt like ice. Someone has to pay the bills, I replied, not looking up from the alternator. She stiffened slightly. I make good money at my job. I know you do. I met her eyes for the first time since she'd entered the garage. How is work, by the way? How's Evan? If I hadn't been watching carefully, I might have missed it, the tiny flicker of panic that crossed her face before she smiled. He's fine, same as always. Why do you ask? No reason, just making conversation. She studied my face for a long moment, then shrugged. Well, don't stay up too much longer, and make sure you clean up when you're done. I'm having Monica over for lunch tomorrow, and I don't want the house smelling like motor oil. Monica, Sabrina's best friend and biggest enabler. The two of them had been thick as thieves since college, bonding over their shared belief that they deserved better than what life had given them. Sure thing, I said. Wouldn't want to embarrass you in front of your friends. She kissed my cheek again and headed back to the house. I waited until I heard the kitchen door close, then pulled out my phone and checked the recording. Crystal clear audio of my wife planning to betray me in every way possible. I looked around the garage, my sanctuary, my workshop, the place where I'd spent countless hours building something meaningful. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, I had work to do. I opened my laptop and started typing an email to the patent office. It was time to remove Sabrina's name from a few documents. After all, she'd never contributed anything to my inventions except discouragement. As I worked, I found myself smiling for the first time in months. Sabrina thought she was so clever, so far ahead of the game, but she'd forgotten one crucial detail. I might be a blue-collar nobody, but I was a blue-collar nobody with a genius-level IQ and absolutely nothing left to lose. This was going to be fun. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Sabrina getting ready for work. She was humming as she moved around the bedroom, picking out her outfit for the day. You're in a good mood, I observed from the bed. It's a beautiful day, she replied, holding up 2 blouses. Which one do you think? The blue or the red? The blue brings out your eyes. She smiled at me in the mirror, the same smile she'd given me on our wedding day. You always know just what to say. If only she knew what I was really thinking. After she left for work, I made myself breakfast and settled in at the kitchen table with my laptop. First order of business, figure out exactly how deep this betrayal went. I started with her email account. Now, before you judge me for hacking into my wife's email, remember that she'd been stealing my intellectual property and planning to divorce me while keeping half my assets. At that point, invasion of privacy seemed like a pretty minor offense. It took me about 10 minutes to crack her password. She'd used the same one for everything since college, Ambition 2024, with the year updating annually. Some things never change. What I found in her inbox made my blood run cold. The affair with Evan had been going on for 8 months. 8 months of hotel rooms, expensive dinners, and weekend getaways while I worked overtime to keep us afloat. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the folder labeled Ends Projects. She'd been photographing my patent applications, my sketches, my notes, everything, and she'd been sending them to Evan, who'd been passing them along to his company's R&D department. They were basically using my ideas as a free research and development service. I sat back in my chair, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. It wasn't just adultery. It wasn't just divorce. It was systematic, calculated theft of everything I'd worked for. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Benny's gym. "Nick, you sound like hell," Benny Kowalski said without preamble. "Get down here. You need to hit something." Benny had been my best friend since high school. He'd opened his boxing gym 15 years ago, and it had become the unofficial therapy center for every blue-collar guy in the city who needed to work out his frustrations with his fists instead of his mouth. "I'm fine, Ben." "No, you're not. Monica was in here an hour ago, running her mouth about how Sabrina's worried about you. Says you've been acting strange." Monica worked out at Benny's gym? That was news to me. "Since when does Monica box?" "She doesn't. She comes in to use the treadmill and gossip with whoever will listen. Today she was going on about how you've been distant, and how Sabrina thinks you might be having some kind of midlife crisis." I almost laughed. A midlife crisis, if only it were that simple. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said. Benny's gym occupied the bottom floor of an old brick building downtown. It smelled like sweat, leather, and determination. The walls were covered with photos of local fighters, some famous, most not, all of them looking like they'd rather be punching something than posing for pictures. I found Benny in his office, a cramped space behind the main gym floor that served as his command center. He was a compact man in his early 50s, with graying hair and hands like concrete blocks from 30 years of working construction before he opened the gym. "Sit," he said, pointing to the folding chair across from his desk. "Talk." So I told him everything. The overheard conversation, the emails, the patent theft, all of it. Benny listened without interrupting, his face growing darker with each detail. "That's some serious shit, Nick," he said when I finished. "What are you going to do about it?" "I'm working on it." "Working on it how? You going to confront her?" "Eventually, but not yet." Benny leaned back in his chair, studying my face. "You're planning something." "Maybe." "Good, because if you just roll over and let them screw you, I'm going to kick your ass myself." He stood up. "Come on, let's work off some of that anger before you do something stupid." We spent the next 2 hours in the gym. I hit the heavy bag until my knuckles were raw, ran on the treadmill until my lungs burned, and sparred with Benny until I could barely lift my arms. It felt good to channel all that rage into something physical. "Better?" Benny asked as we cooled down. "Yeah, thanks." "Just remember, revenge is a dish best served cold. Don't go off half-cocked. Plan it out. Make it count." I nodded, but I was already planning, and what I had in mind would be very, very cold. That evening, Sabrina came home late, claiming she'd had to work overtime on a big project. She was glowing with excitement, practically bouncing as she told me about her day. "We're on the verge of a major breakthrough," she said over dinner. "Evan thinks we might have found the solution to that power efficiency problem we've been working on." The power efficiency problem? That was rich. I'd solved that problem 6 months ago in my garage. The solution was sitting in my patent application, waiting for approval. "That's great, honey," I said. "I'm proud of you." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I know I've been distant lately. Work has been so stressful. But things are going to get better soon. I can feel it." "I'm sure they are." After dinner, she disappeared into her home office to catch up on some paperwork. I cleaned up the kitchen, then headed to my garage. I had my own paperwork to catch up on. I spent the evening documenting everything I'd discovered. Screenshots of emails, transcripts of recorded conversations, detailed timelines of when my ideas had been stolen and when Evan's company had filed their corresponding patent applications. It was a pattern of theft so blatant that even a first-year law student could prove it in court. But I wasn't planning to go to court, not yet, anyway. Courts were slow, expensive, and unpredictable. I had something much more satisfying in mind. I pulled up Evan's social media profiles. The man was a walking cliché of corporate excess, photos of his Tesla, his downtown condo, his expensive suits, his weekend trips to wine country. He posted constantly, documenting every meal, every purchase, every moment of his privileged life. What he didn't realize was that he was also documenting evidence of his crimes. Several of his posts showed him at company meetings, discussing innovations that I recognized as my own work. He was so arrogant, so confident that he'd never be caught, that he was basically creating a public record of his theft. I started making a list of everyone who needed to pay for what they'd done to me. Sabrina, obviously. Evan, definitely. Monica, for being Sabrina's accomplice and spreading lies about me. Maybe a few others depending on how deep this conspiracy went. But first, I needed more information. I needed to understand exactly how they planned to destroy me, so I could destroy them first. I set up a fake email account and sent myself a test message, making sure it looked like it came from an anonymous tipster. Then I forwarded it to my real account with a note. Thought you should know what people are saying about your wife. Tomorrow, I'd discover this email and use it as an excuse to start asking questions. Innocent questions. Concerned husband questions. The kind of questions that would make Sabrina and her friends nervous enough to make mistakes, and when people make mistakes, they reveal their true selves. I was looking forward to seeing who Sabrina really was underneath all that polish and pretense. Something told me it wasn't going to be pretty. 3 days later, I got my first real break. I was having lunch at Murphy's Bar, a dive near the gym that served decent burgers and minded its own business, when I overheard a conversation at the next table. "I'm telling you, it's getting serious," a woman was saying. "Monica showed me the pictures." I glanced over. 2 middle-aged women, both wearing the kind of expensive workout clothes that screamed suburban housewife with too much time and money. I didn't recognize them, but they clearly knew me. "Pictures of what?" the second woman asked. "Sabrina and her boss. Monica caught them at the Marriott downtown last week. Full-on affair, apparently." My burger turned to sawdust in my mouth. Monica had pictures, and she was showing them around? What about her husband? What's his name? Nick? Monica says he has no idea. Poor guy. He seems nice enough, but honestly, can you blame Sabrina? I mean, look at what she married versus what she could have. I stood up abruptly, threw some money on the table, and walked out, but not before I heard the final nail in my coffin. Monica says Sabrina's planning to file for divorce as soon as she gets some kind of business deal sorted out. Something about patents or intellectual property. Apparently, Nick's been working on some inventions that could be worth real money. So Monica wasn't just an enabler. She was actively helping Sabrina plan my destruction, and she was spreading the story around town like it was entertainment. I sat in my truck outside Murphy's for a long time, thinking. Then I called Janice. "I need to accelerate our timeline," I told her. "How fast can you get those patent amendments processed?" "If it's an emergency, maybe a week. But Nick, what's the rush?" "They're moving faster than I thought. I need those documents clean before they make their move." "Okay, I'll file the amendments tomorrow, but you need to be careful. If they suspect what you're doing." "They won't. They think I'm too stupid to figure it out." "And you're going to let them keep thinking that?" "For now." That afternoon, I drove to Sabrina's office building. I'd never visited her at work before. She'd always said it would be unprofessional and distracting. Now, I understood why. The building was all glass and steel, the kind of place that made you feel underdressed even in your best clothes. I parked across the street and waited. At 5:30, Sabrina emerged from the elevator with Evan. They weren't touching, but they walked close together, heads bent in intimate conversation. They got into his Tesla and drove off together. I followed them to the Marriott downtown, the same hotel Monica had mentioned. They went straight to the elevator, Evan's hand on the small of Sabrina's back. I waited in the lobby for an hour, then went up to the bar on the 20th floor. It had a clear view of the hotel's parking garage. Sure enough, both cars were still there. While I waited, I struck up a conversation with the bartender, a friendly guy named Carlos who'd been working there for 10 years. "You see a lot of interesting stuff in a place like this, I bet," I said. Carlos shrugged. "People are people. They do what they do. I'm thinking about booking a room for my anniversary. My wife loves nice hotels. This is a good one. We get a lot of regulars, business people mostly. Some of them have been coming here for months." "Really? Same rooms?" "Oh, yeah. There's this one couple, they always book the same suite on Wednesdays. Been doing it since last summer. Real classy lady, older guy with a fancy car." Wednesdays. I checked my phone. Today was Wednesday. Sounds like they know what they like. "That's the thing about affairs," Carlos said, then caught himself. "I mean, that's what I assume. You can always tell the married couples from the other kind." I tipped him well and went home. Sabrina arrived 2 hours later, full of apologies about working late and how exhausting her job was. She'd even messed up her hair and wrinkled her clothes to sell the story. "How was your day?" she asked, kissing my cheek. "Quiet. Worked on Mrs. Patterson's alternator some more. Fixed the Johnson's lawnmower." "That's nice, honey." She wasn't really listening. She was already thinking about her shower, her evening routine, her lies. "Oh, I almost forgot," I said casually. "Monica called. She wanted to know if we were free for dinner this weekend." Sabrina froze. "Monica called you?" "Yeah. Around 3 o'clock. Said she couldn't reach you." I watched her face carefully. She was calculating, trying to figure out what Monica might have said, what I might have heard. "That's weird. My phone was on all day." Maybe she got the number wrong. Anyway, I told her we'd get back to her. "Right, good." She headed for the stairs. "I'm going to take a shower." As soon as I heard the water running, I checked her phone. She'd left it on the kitchen counter, and sure enough, there were 3 missed calls from Monica, all around 3 p.m. But more interesting were the text messages. "Monica, we need to talk, now." Sabrina, "Can't, in meeting." Monica, "I saw Nick at Murphy's. He was listening to everything." Sabrina, "What do you mean everything?" Monica, "The pictures, the divorce, the patents, everything." Sabrina, "Shit. How much do you think he heard?" Monica, "Enough. We need to move up the timeline." Sabrina, "I can't. Evan needs more time to secure the patent transfers." Monica, "Then we need to discredit Nick before he figures out what's happening." Sabrina, "How?" Monica, "Leave that to me." The shower was still running. I quickly forwarded the entire conversation to my secret email account, then deleted the evidence from her sent folder. When Sabrina came downstairs 20 minutes later, I was watching TV like nothing had happened. "You seem tense," I observed. "Just work stress. You know how it is." "Actually, I don't. You never talk about your work." She looked at me sharply. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just making conversation." But she was studying my face now, looking for signs that I knew more than I was letting on. "Nick, is everything okay between us?" "Of course. Why wouldn't it be?" "I don't know. You've seemed different lately." "Different how?" "I can't put my finger on it, just different." I reached over and took her hand. "Honey, I love you. You know that, right?" She squeezed my hand, but her eyes were wary. I love you too. Lies. All of it. But I played my part perfectly. The trusting, clueless husband who had no idea his world was about to implode. What Sabrina didn't realize was that her world was about to implode first. Because while she and Monica were planning to discredit me, I was planning something much more comprehensive. I was planning to destroy them all. The next morning, I put the first phase of my plan into action. I drove to the office of Peterson & Associates, the law firm that handled Evans Company's legal work. I'd done some research and discovered that they specialized in intellectual property law. I'd like to speak with someone about patent infringement, I told the receptionist. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from David Peterson himself, a sharp-eyed man in his 60s who looked like he'd spent his career eating corporate executives for breakfast. Mr. Williams, what can I do for you? I laid out my evidence methodically. The timeline of my patent applications, the dates of Evans Company's corresponding filings, the email trail showing my ideas being transmitted to their R&D department. Peterson's eyebrows rose higher with each document. This is quite serious, he said finally. You understand that if these allegations are true, we're talking about criminal charges as well as civil liability? I understand, but I'm not here to file charges. Not yet. What are you here for? Information. I want to know exactly how deep this goes. How many of my ideas they've stolen, how much money they've made from them, who else is involved. Peterson leaned back in his chair, and in exchange? I'm willing to consider a settlement, if they're reasonable. Define reasonable. I named a figure that made Peterson's eyes widen. It was everything Evans Company had made from my stolen ideas, plus damages, plus interest. That's substantial. So is intellectual property theft. Peterson promised to look into the matter and get back to me within a week. I left his office feeling like I'd just lit a very long fuse. That afternoon, I went to Benny's gym for my usual workout. I was halfway through my routine when Monica appeared on the treadmill next to mine. Nick, what a surprise! Monica Chen was one of those women who tried too hard at everything. Too much makeup, too much perfume, too much enthusiasm about other people's business. She'd been Sabrina's college roommate, and somehow that had translated into a lifetime friendship based on mutual enablement of each other's worst impulses. Hey, Monica, didn't know you worked out here? Oh, I just started coming. Benny's so sweet, and the rates are much better than those fancy chain gyms. She was fishing for information, trying to figure out how much I knew. I decided to give her something to think about. Yeah, Benny's great. He's been helping me work through some stress lately. Stress? What kind of stress? Oh, marriage stuff, work stuff, the usual. Her eyes sharpened. Is everything okay with you and Sabrina? I hope so, but lately I've been hearing rumors around town, people talking. Monica's face went pale. What kind of rumors? Nothing specific, just talk. You know how people are in a small city. Everyone knows everyone's business. That's terrible. People should mind their own business. I agree, but sometimes rumors are based on truth, I finished my workout and headed for the locker room, leaving Monica standing there with a stricken expression on her face. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing with texts from Sabrina. Monica says you seemed upset at the gym. Is everything okay? Fine, just tired. Are you sure? She said you mentioned rumors. People talk. You know how it is. What kind of rumors? Nothing important. Don't worry about it. But she was worrying about it. I could tell from the increasingly frantic texts that followed. Nick, please call me. We need to talk when I get home. I'm leaving work early. Perfect. Let them panic. Let them wonder how much I knew and what I was planning to do about it. Sabrina burst through the front door at 4 p.m., 2 hours earlier than usual. Nick, where are you? I emerged from the garage, wiping my hands on a rag. Hey, honey, you're home early. We need to talk. She led me to the living room and sat down on the couch, patting the cushion next to her. Her face was serious, concerned, the picture of a loving wife worried about her marriage. Monica said you seemed upset today. She said you mentioned people talking about us. Did she? Nick, please. If something's wrong, I need to know. We're a team, remember? A team. That was rich, coming from someone who'd been systematically betraying me for months. I've been hearing things around town, I said carefully, about you and your boss. Her face went white. What kind of things? People are saying you two are close. Close how? You know how. She was quiet for a long moment, and I could see her calculating her options. Deny everything? Come clean? Try to turn it around on me? She chose option 3. Nick, I can't believe you'd listen to gossip about me, about us, after everything we've been through together. So it's not true. Of course it's not true. Evan is my boss. We work together, that's all. Then why are people talking? I don't know. Maybe because I've been successful at work, and people in this town can't stand to see a woman succeed. Maybe because I work long hours and people assume the worst. Maybe because they're bored and need something to gossip about. She was good. Really good. If I hadn't heard her planning my destruction with my own ears, I might have believed her. You're right, I said. I'm sorry. I should have talked to you instead of listening to rumors. Relief flooded her face. Oh, Nick, I was so worried. I thought maybe you were having doubts about us. Never, I lied, taking her hand. I love you. I trust you. I love you too, so much. She kissed me, and for a moment I almost forgot that she was planning to destroy my life. Almost. That night, after she fell asleep, I snuck down to my garage and checked my email. Peterson had already responded. Mr. Williams, after a preliminary review of your materials, I believe you have a very strong case. I'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss strategy. Also, you should know that my firm has been approached by another party regarding similar allegations. It seems you're not the only inventor who's been targeted. Another inventor. That meant this wasn't just about me. Evan and his company had been systematically stealing ideas from multiple sources. This was bigger than I'd thought. I typed back, I'm interested in meeting with the other party. Can you arrange it? The response came back within minutes. I'll set something up for tomorrow afternoon. I closed the laptop and looked around my garage. Tomorrow, I'd learn just how deep this conspiracy went, and then I'd decide exactly how much pain to inflict on the people who'd betrayed me. Sabrina thought she was so clever, playing the innocent wife while plotting my destruction. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. By the time I was finished with her, she'd realize that was the biggest mistake of her life. The next afternoon, I found myself in Peterson's conference room, facing a woman about my age with tired eyes and calloused hands. Her name was Janet Murphy, and she looked like she'd been through hell. They stole 18 months of my work, she said, without preamble. 18 months of research into battery technology that could revolutionize electric vehicles. I trusted them, gave them everything, and they cut me out the moment they had what they needed. How did they get your research? I asked. Same way they got yours, I imagine. Through someone close to me. In my case, it was my business partner. We'd been working together for 5 years, and I thought he was my friend. Peterson spread documents across the conference table. What we're looking at here is a pattern of systematic intellectual property theft spanning at least 3 years. They identify promising inventors, gain access to their work through intermediaries, then file competing patents and cut the original inventors out of the profits. How many victims are there? I asked. That we know of? At least a dozen, but probably more. Janet leaned forward. The question is, what are we going to do about it? I've been thinking about that, I said. We could file criminal charges, sue for damages, try to get their patents invalidated, But all of that takes time, and there's no guarantee we'd win. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we get creative. They've been playing dirty for years. Maybe it's time we played dirty too. Peterson looked uncomfortable. Mr. Williams, I have to advise you that any illegal activity— I'm not talking about anything illegal. I'm talking about using their own tactics against them. Deception, misdirection, public humiliation. Janet smiled for the first time since I'd met her. I like the way you think. What did you have in mind? We spent the next 2 hours planning. By the time we were finished, I had a comprehensive strategy for destroying not just Evan and his company, but everyone who'd helped them steal from us. That evening, Sabrina was unusually affectionate. She cooked my favorite dinner, opened a bottle of expensive wine, and spent the meal asking about my day with what seemed like genuine interest. You seem happier lately, she observed over dessert. Do I? Yes, more confident, I guess. It's nice to see. If only she knew why I was confident. I've been working on some new projects. I think they might actually go somewhere this time. Really? That's wonderful. Tell me about them. So I did. I told her about a revolutionary new battery design that could triple the efficiency of electric vehicles. I told her about a solar panel configuration that could generate power even in low-light conditions. I told her about innovations that could change the world. None of it was true, of course, but I described each invention in loving detail, complete with technical specifications and market projections. Sabrina hung on every word, asking intelligent questions and taking mental notes. By the time we went to bed, she was practically vibrating with excitement. I knew that by tomorrow morning, every detail of our conversation would be in Evan's hands, which was exactly what I wanted. The next day, I put phase 2 of my plan into action. I drove to the office of the city's largest newspaper and asked to speak with their investigative reporter. Mike Torres had been covering corruption and corporate malfeasance for 20 years. He was a small, intense man with the kind of suspicious nature that made him very good at his job. Intellectual property theft, he mused after I'd laid out the basics of the story. It's not exactly front-page material. It is when it involves dozens of inventors and millions of dollars in stolen innovations. His eyes sharpened. Dozens? I handed him a folder containing everything Peterson and I had compiled. Names, dates, amounts, a comprehensive picture of a criminal enterprise masquerading as a legitimate business. Torres flipped through the documents, his expression growing more interested with each page. This is good stuff, he admitted, but I'll need corroboration, other sources, documentation. I can get you both. How long? Give me a week. And in exchange? I want the story to run on a specific date, and I want advance copies of the article. Why? Let's just say I want to make sure certain people see it before it hits the newsstands. Torres agreed, and I left his office feeling like another piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. That afternoon, I was working in my garage when Benny stopped by. You look like a man with a plan, he observed. Maybe I am. Good. Because Monica was in the gym again today, asking questions about you. What kind of questions? Your routine. When you come in, who you talk to, whether you've seemed upset lately. She's fishing for information. What did you tell her? That you're a stand-up guy who minds his own business and pays his bills on time. But Nick, you need to be careful. That woman is up to something. I know. Thanks for the heads up. After Benny left, I sat in my garage thinking about Monica. She was the weak link in Sabrina's plan, the one most likely to panic and make mistakes. Maybe it was time to apply some pressure and see what happened. I pulled out my phone and called her directly. Nick, hi. How are you? I'm fine, Monica. Listen, I was wondering if you could help me with something. Of course, anything. Sabrina's birthday is coming up, and I want to surprise her with something special. I was thinking maybe a weekend getaway. Oh, that's so sweet. The thing is, I want to make sure I pick a place she hasn't been before. You know how she is about trying new things. There was a pause. What do you mean? Well, I don't want to book the Marriott downtown if she's already been there for work events or whatever. You know what I mean? Another pause, longer this time. I don't think she's been there recently. Are you sure? I could have sworn she mentioned having lunch there with clients. No, I don't think so. Her voice was getting smaller, more uncertain. I could practically hear her panic through the phone. Well, maybe I'm thinking of somewhere else. Anyway, thanks for the help. Nick, wait. But I'd already hung up. Within 10 minutes, my phone was buzzing with calls from Sabrina. I let them go to voicemail. Nick, Monica said you called her about my birthday. That's so sweet, but you don't need to plan anything elaborate. Call me back. Nick, where are you? I'm getting worried. Nick, please call me back. I love you. I waited until evening to return her calls. There you are, she said when she picked up. I was getting worried. Sorry, I was at the hardware store and then got caught up working on a project. Monica said you called about my birthday. Yeah, I wanted to surprise you with a weekend trip. But don't worry, I won't spoil the surprise. You don't have to do anything expensive. It's not about the money. It's about showing you how much I love you. She was quiet for a moment. Nick, you've been so sweet lately. So attentive. It makes me feel terrible. Why would it make you feel terrible? Because I haven't been as good a wife as I should be. I've been distracted by work, and I know I haven't been paying enough attention to you. You're perfect, I lied. You're everything I ever wanted. I love you so much, she whispered. I love you too. After we hung up, I sat in my garage and smiled. The pressure was getting to all of them. Sabrina was feeling guilty. Monica was panicking. And somewhere across town, Evan was probably wondering why his inside information had suddenly become unreliable. Tomorrow, I'd turn up the heat a little more. But tonight, I was content to let them stew in their own anxiety. They thought they were playing chess, but they'd been playing checkers all along, and I was about to show them the difference. A week later, everything came together at once. It started with a phone call from Peterson. The patents have been invalidated, he said. All of them. The patent office found clear evidence of prior art and fraudulent applications. Evan's company just lost about $50 million in intellectual property. What about criminal charges? The FBI is opening an investigation. It could take months, but the evidence is solid. Good. What about the other thing? The newspaper story runs tomorrow. Torres did excellent work. It's front page above the fold. I hung up and checked my watch. 3 p.m. Sabrina would be getting off work soon, probably meeting Evan to commiserate about their sudden legal troubles. It was time for the final phase. I drove to the Marriott and positioned myself in the lobby where I could see the elevators. Sure enough, at 4:30, Sabrina and Evan emerged looking like they'd been through a war. Their faces were grim, their body language tense. I followed them to the hotel bar, staying far enough back to avoid being seen. They took a corner table and immediately started talking in urgent whispers. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I didn't need to. I already knew they were trying to figure out how their perfect plan had fallen apart so quickly. What they didn't know was that it was about to get much worse. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Monica. Meet me at Murphy's bar in 1 hour. We need to talk about Sabrina. Then I sent another text to Sabrina's sister Jennifer. I have some information about Sabrina that you need to hear. Can you meet me tonight? And finally, I sent a message to Sabrina's boss at her legitimate job. I think there's something you should know about Sabrina's activities during work hours. By 6 p.m., I was sitting at Murphy's bar waiting for Monica to arrive. She showed up 10 minutes later, looking like she'd aged 5 years in the past week. Nick, thank God you called. I've been so worried about you and Sabrina. Have you? Yes. I know things have been tense between you two, and I just want to help. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table between us. On the screen was a photo of Sabrina and Evan kissing in the hotel lobby. Monica's face went white. I know everything, Monica. The affair. The patent theft. Your part in it. Nick, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why you've been helping my wife destroy my life? Can you explain why you've been spreading lies about me around town? I never meant for it to go this far. Sabrina said you two were having problems, that you were planning to leave her anyway. So you decided to help her beat me to it? Monica started crying. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me. You helped her steal my work, my money, my reputation. And now you're going to help me get it back. What do you mean? I slid a document across the table. That's a sworn statement detailing everything you know about Sabrina's activities. You're going to sign it. I can't. You can and you will. Because if you don't, I'm going to make sure everyone in this city knows that you've been enabling adultery and industrial espionage. Your husband, your kids, your employer, everyone. Monica picked up the pen with shaking hands and signed the statement. There's one more thing, I said. Tomorrow morning, the newspaper is running a story about the patent theft. Sabrina's going to be named as a co-conspirator. When she calls you panicking, you're going to tell her that you can't help her anymore. Nick, please. You should have thought about this before you decided to betray me. I left Monica crying in the bar and drove home. Sabrina was already there, pacing the living room like a caged animal. Nick, thank God you're home. Something terrible has happened. What's wrong? There's been a mistake at Evan's company, some kind of legal problem with their patents. They're saying someone stole intellectual property, but that's impossible. That sounds serious. It is serious. They're talking about criminal charges, and somehow my name got mixed up in it. She was watching my face carefully, looking for any sign that I knew more than I was letting on. How could your name get mixed up in something like that? I don't know. Maybe because I work there, or because I've been involved in some of their projects. But Nick, I'm scared. What if they try to blame me for something I didn't do? I'm sure it will all work out. You believe me, don't you? You know I would never do anything dishonest? Of course I believe you. But she could see something in my eyes that made her take a step back. Nick, what's wrong? You look different. Do I? Yes. You look, I don't know, cold. I smiled and she took another step back. Sabrina, we need to talk. About what? About your affair with Evan. About the patents you've been stealing. About the divorce you've been planning. Her face went through a series of expressions: shock, denial, calculation, and finally, resignation. How long have you known? Long enough. What are you going to do? I'm going to destroy you. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You? You're going to destroy me? Nick, you're a blue-collar nobody with a garage full of broken dreams. I'm a successful corporate executive with connections and resources. What could you possibly do to me? I pulled out my phone and showed her the newspaper's website. The story was already online, with a headline that made her face go pale. Local tech company accused of massive patent theft scheme. Her picture was right there under the headline, identified as a key conspirator in the scheme. How did you... I'm not as stupid as you thought I was. She sank into a chair, the fight going out of her. What do you want? I want you to pack your things and get out of my house. Your house? This is our house. Actually, it's my house. I bought it before we got married, and I never put your name on the deed. The patents you thought you co-owned? I had your name removed months ago. The joint accounts you've been raiding? I emptied them and moved the money to accounts you can't access. You can't do this. I already did it. She stood up, and for a moment I thought she might try to hit me. Instead, she grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "This isn't over, Nick." "Yes, it is." After she left, I sat in my living room and waited. At 11 p.m., my phone rang. "Mr. Williams, this is Agent Sarah Chen with the FBI. We'd like to talk to you about your wife's activities." "I'd be happy to help. Can you come in tomorrow morning?" "Absolutely." I hung up and smiled. Tomorrow, Sabrina would wake up to find her face on the front page of the newspaper. She'd discover that her employer had fired her, that her bank accounts were frozen, that her friends were avoiding her calls. She'd also discover that I'd filed for divorce and that I was seeking full restitution for the intellectual property she'd helped steal. But the best part was still to come. Because in 3 days, I had a meeting with a major tech company that was very interested in licensing my real inventions. The ones Sabrina had never seen. The ones I'd been working on in secret while she was busy stealing my decoy ideas. The meeting was worth potentially $50 million, and she wouldn't see a penny of it. I went to bed that night with a smile on my face. Tomorrow would bring the sweet satisfaction of watching my enemies reap what they had sown. Sometimes revenge really was a dish best served cold. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Most were from Sabrina, but there were also messages from Monica, Jennifer, and several numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them all and made myself breakfast while reading the newspaper. Torres had done excellent work. The article laid out the entire patent theft scheme in devastating detail, complete with photographs, financial records, and quotes from multiple victims. Sabrina's picture was prominently featured, along with a detailed description of her role in the conspiracy. The article described her as a key operative who used her marriage to gain access to her husband's intellectual property, then systematically transmitted his innovations to her employer and lover. My phone rang. "Janet Murphy." "Have you seen the paper?" she asked. "I'm reading it now." Torres really nailed them. My phone's been ringing all morning with other inventors who think they might have been victims too. "How many?" "At least 20 so far. This is bigger than we thought." After I hung up, I drove to Peterson's office. The waiting room was packed with people holding copies of the newspaper. "Victims," Peterson explained when he saw me looking around. "They started showing up an hour ago." "What's the status on the criminal investigation?" "Moving fast. The FBI has already executed search warrants on Evans' company and frozen their assets. They want to interview you this afternoon." "Good. What about the civil suits?" "We're looking at a class action lawsuit that could be worth hundreds of millions. You'll be the lead plaintiff." I left Peterson's office feeling like justice was finally within reach, but I wasn't done yet. My next stop was the gym. Benny was waiting for me with a huge grin on his face. "Did you see the paper? Monica was in here an hour ago, crying her eyes out. Said her husband kicked her out after he read the article." "What did she expect?" "She kept saying it wasn't supposed to happen like this, that Sabrina promised no one would get hurt." Sabrina promised a lot of things. I spent an hour working out, then drove to the FBI field office for my interview. Agent Chen was a serious woman in her 40s who looked like she'd spent her career putting white-collar criminals behind bars. "Mr. Williams, thank you for coming in. We've reviewed the evidence you provided, and it's been very helpful. What can you tell me about the investigation?" "We've arrested Evan Morrison and 2 other executives from his company. We expect to make additional arrests in the coming days." "What about my wife?" "She's cooperating with the investigation. In exchange for her testimony, we're considering reduced charges." I felt a flash of anger. "Reduced charges?" "She's providing information about other victims and other companies that may have been involved. Her cooperation could help us break up a much larger criminal network." I understood the logic, but it still stung. Sabrina was going to escape the worst consequences of her actions by betraying her co-conspirators. But that was okay. I had my own plans for her. That evening, I was sitting in my garage when I heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the window, I saw Sabrina getting out of a taxi. She looked terrible, haggard, exhausted, like she'd aged 10 years in 24 hours. She knocked on the front door, but I didn't answer. After a few minutes, she came around to the garage. "Nick, please, we need to talk." I looked up from my workbench. "What's there to talk about?" "I know you're angry. I know you have every right to be. But we can work this out." "Can we?" "I'll do anything. I'll go to counseling. I'll quit my job. I'll sign a post-nup giving you everything. Just please don't throw away 23 years of marriage." "You threw it away when you decided to betray me." "I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But I love you, Nick. I've always loved you. You love my patents. You love my ideas. You love what I can do for your career. But you don't love me." She started crying. "That's not true." "Isn't it? When's the last time you asked about my day and actually listened to the answer? When's the last time you showed interest in my work that wasn't about what you could steal from it? When's the last time you looked at me and saw anything other than a means to an end?" She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. "That's what I thought." "Nick, please, I'm begging you, give me another chance." "I gave you 23 years of chances. You used every one of them to take advantage of me. What about forgiveness? What about for better or worse? What about adultery? What about theft? What about systematic betrayal?" She wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders. When she spoke again, her voice was cold and hard. "Fine, if that's how you want to play it, we'll play it that way. I'll fight the divorce. I'll demand half of everything. I'll make this as painful and expensive as possible." "You can try." "I will try, and I'll win. Because no matter what you think you know about the law, I have better lawyers than you do." I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Her voice filled the garage. "He actually thinks his little inventions are going somewhere. Can you believe that? 42 years old and still playing with gadgets in the garage like some teenager." Her face went white. "I have hours of recordings, Sabrina. Conversations between you and Evan, you and Monica, you and your lawyer. Everything you've said about me, everything you've planned to do to me, it's all documented. You can't use those in court. They were recorded without my consent. Actually, I can, because they were recorded in my own home, and state law allows single-party consent for domestic surveillance when infidelity is suspected." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating her options. "How much?" she asked finally. "How much what?" "How much do you want to make this go away quietly?" "I don't want your money, Sabrina, I never did." "Then what do you want?" "I want you to disappear from my life completely. I want you to sign the divorce papers without contest. I want you to relinquish any claim to my property, my patents, or my future earnings. And I want you to publicly apologize for what you've done." "A public apology?" "A full-page ad in the newspaper. Your picture, your name, a complete confession of your crimes and betrayals." "I won't do it." "Then I'll see you in court. And when I'm done with you, you'll wish you'd taken my offer." She turned and walked away without another word. 3 days later, I was sitting in the conference room of Meridian Technologies, facing a panel of executives who were very interested in my battery innovations. "Mr. Williams," the CEO said, "we've reviewed your patents and prototypes, and we're prepared to offer you a licensing deal worth $60 million, with additional royalties based on sales." I signed the contract that afternoon. A week later, Sabrina's public apology appeared in the newspaper. It was everything I'd asked for and more, a complete confession of her crimes, an acknowledgement of the pain she'd caused, and a promise to make full restitution to all her victims. At the bottom, in small print, it mentioned that she was entering a plea agreement with federal prosecutors and would be serving 18 months in federal prison. The same day, Monica's husband filed for divorce, citing adultery and conspiracy. Evan was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $20 million in restitution. But the best part came a month later, when I received a check from the class action settlement. My share was $47 million, compensation for all the ideas that had been stolen, plus punitive damages. I deposited the check and drove to Benny's gym. "You did it," he said when he saw me. "You actually did it." "Yeah, I did." "How does it feel?" "Like justice." "What are you going to do now?" I looked around the gym, at the faded photos on the walls, the worn equipment, the guys working out their frustrations with their fists instead of their words. "I think I'm going to buy this place," I said. "Fix it up, maybe expand it." "You want to go into the gym business?" "I want to help other people fight back when life tries to knock them down." Benny grinned. "I like that idea." 6 months later, I was standing in the renovated gym, watching a young inventor named Marcus work the heavy bag. He'd come to me after discovering that his business partner had been stealing his ideas and selling them to competitors. "You think I can beat them?" he asked. "I know you can," I said. "But first, you need to understand something. Revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting justice. And justice requires patience, planning, and the absolute certainty that you're in the right." "How do I know I'm in the right?" "Because they betrayed your trust. They stole from you. They thought they could destroy you because they believed you were weak. And now? Now you show them how wrong they were." Marcus nodded and went back to hitting the bag. I watched him for a while, remembering my own journey from victim to victor. Sabrina had been right about one thing. I was a blue-collar nobody with a garage full of dreams. But she'd been wrong about everything else. Dreams aren't worthless if you're willing to fight for them, and sometimes the nobody wins. I pulled out my phone and checked my bank balance. $87 million, and growing every day as the royalties rolled in. Not bad for a blue-collar nobody.